Ois ches. So the Rebbe so far explained the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab, the three levels of Oir. The Rebbe explained it how it's an Avodas Hashem, the three levels of Amunah in Seichel, Amunah higher than Seichel, and Mesiras Nefesh. Then the Rebbe explained the next part of the Maimer, in which the Rebbe brings down that the uh, Rotsui, because the Rotsui of the Oir wants to go up is not only in the highest levels, but it's in all levels of Oir. And the Rebbe explained that there is two levels, the one that you want to be connected and the other one not to be disconnected. And the Rebbe explains that while the Ratzon to be connected is on a higher level, that's in the oil, like it's kolul b'hamoir, in the oil which is called b'hamoir, but yet it's deeper because it penetrates in the oil, which is dafke that comes be his lapshus. And that's why that is by everyone, as opposed to the level of the Ratzon to be included in the Ein Sof, that's only by Yechidus Gula. Now, the Rebbe will bring out how this whole Maimer, the Rebbe already said before, the reason the Rebbe Rashab gave this Maimer on Tisha B'Av Nidcha, because he wants to talk about Oir. And the Oir, and we said before, the real pushing away of the Choshech is when you bring in an Oir Blik Vul, then there is no Choshech L'Chatchila. Can either push away Choshech, that's an Oir Mugbal, and therefore we're talking about the Oir which is on the highest level, because that's the way to get rid of the Choshech. The Rebbe will now explain the whole Hemshech of the Maimer, how it is takeh from a higher level, but it also comes down into the lower level, which means that even in the Oir, but we want the Choshech itself, we don't want it to be bottled because it has an oir that comes from Bligvul. We want it to go down also in the oilam, and this is the Kate Som L'Choshech. Okay, I know I'm just saying quick words, but let's look inside. The Rebbe explains it all beautifully, that the Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab gave on this Tisha B'Av Nidcha was not just telling us generally that we need the Oir HaBligvul in order to really eradicate Choshech, but also it eradicates the Choshech, but it's also within the level of Gevul, within Oilam, not only from outside, within Oilam should also be able to come the Geula, so that the Geula impacts the world itself. Let's look inside. Ches. V'hinei, al pi ha-yadua goydel ha-diuk b'mamori Rabbeinu Nisrin. We know, it's known, the great precise of the Maimorim of our Rebbes, our leaders, Gam b'negelis manamirosim, also as it pertains to when they said it. Mistaber loymar. So it's logical to say the Rebbe is going to make now a connection of the whole Maimer to Tisha B'Av Nidcha. Sha'ashaych is the Maimer Hanal le Tisha B'Av Nidcha. The connection from that Maimer to, of the Rebbe said in Tofresh Ayin Daled, in the Hemshech of Ayin Beis, that the connection of this Maimer to Tisha B'Av Nidcha, who Hein mitzad klolus hatoichen da Maimer. It's both because of the general content of the Maimer. Inyan ha'oir, as the Rebbe mentioned that before. We need light to eradicate the golus, the cheshach golus. But it's also v'gam mitzad aprotim de oir hamavorim b'Maimer. But also the details of oir that are explained in the Maimer, that is specifically connected how to get rid of this golus, the nidcha, to make it into gula. And the idea is The bichdei shehachosech yizbatel legamri. If we want the choshech to be totally negated, as the Rebbe has already spoken earlier, not just that if it's oir there, the poil mamish, the choshech is pushed away from the oir, but we want choshech to become non-existent. That is specifically when there's a relation, when there's of a unlimited light, kinal siv base, as the Rebbe said before, siv base, that's the way to get rid of choshech, not to push away choshech. And more specifically, as we say, what is that oir hablikbul? Alidei gilu oir hakol b'moir, through the revelation of the oir, which is included in the moir. This was the third highest level of oir, which is kolul b'moir. Then, from that perspective, then choshech is gone. The oir shem is pashut mechutz lemoir, because if we talk about oir which expands outside of the moir, in yonehul oir es choshech, oir that is to illuminate darkness, which means there is darkness, it illuminates darkness. We're talking about here getting rid of darkness. We got to talk about an oir which is not to deal and illuminate darkness. We're talking about an oir where darkness doesn't exist. The oir the oir that expands outside of the moir, that is, the idea is to illuminate the darkness. Just like the light of the sun, which expands into the air, into the hollow of the world, it's outside of the shemesh. This ray of the sun, the shine of the sun, is not in the sun, it's outside of the sun. The place of the hollow of the world is a place which is darkened. What is the idea of the light which expands into the hollow of the world? Is to illuminate the place of darkness. And then the light which is included in the moir, that is not illuminating darkness, that doesn't allow for darkness. That's in a level, in a space, or on a level where there is no choshech. This is the example by the shemesh. You have the oil which comes outside of the shemesh, and you have the oil which is in the shemesh. The oil in the shemesh, there is no darkness there within the shemesh. That is also the similar is above. The mehachilukim bein oirin sov shekoidem atzimtzum. The differences between when we talk about the Eir Ein Sof, which is before the Tzimtzum, meaning before the Eibishter created the Cholol and the world was put in there, there's the Eir Ein Sof, the way it's Kolul B'Hamoir. That's the Eir Ein Sof that is Koidem HaTzimtzum. Oir HaKolul B'Atzmusei. That was a light which was included in Atzmus, like the Eir HaShemesh B'Shemesh. Before there is a choshech place of olam to illuminate, but it's the oir which is included in atzmus before there is a world, before there's a makom choshech. That's one level, and then you have a oir shel achrei hatzimtzum. Then you have the oir after the restriction in which there was a world, a cholol created, and your mamshich oir inside that choshech shu dugmas oir hamispashet mechutz lamoir. That is similar to the oil that expand outside of the moir. So what's the difference between the level of oil, which is kolu b'atzmusei lifnei hatzimtzum, and the oil which is la'achar hatzimtzum. Sha'oil shenimshach la'achar hatzimtzum, the oil that is extended after the tzimtzum in yonihu l'hoires oilomis. The idea of that oil is to illuminate darkness. There's choshech, there's oilomis, and the oil illuminates them. V'lochein hagilui elakus sheyeshnam ba'olam al yidei gilui oil. So then the revelation of godliness that is in the world. So now there is oil. So before it was choshech, and now you're oil here. Shalachrei hatzimtzum, that comes after the tzimtzum. That instead of the being a choshech, so after the tzimtzum, now you have oil. Hu b'derech ischatshus. So the oil is something new. It's a renewal. It's a novelty that came into the world. The world, in essence, is a dark place, and you put in there a novelty. You put in there oil, which means that mitzias b'pshitus, the world is obvious, existence is obvious, ve'elokus b'yischatshus, and godliness, the oil is something new. We brought in, there is a renewal here. There's something new here, which is the Gilui oil. Al derech, Rebbe says in the bracket of oil hashemesh mispashet b'chol ha'olam, similar to the light of the sun which expands into the hollow of the world. Shahamokin b'chol ha'olam mitzad atzmai, the place of the hollow of the world on its own, before the shemesh comes there, humokim choshech. It's a place, a darkened place. And then when the shemesh comes down there, it's in a way of an addition and a chiddush. So that is explaining the chilik between the gilui of the oir la'achar hatzimtzum and the gilui of the oir shalifnei hatzimtzum. So on the other hand, this was the gilui of the oir shalachar hatzimtzum. Ukshemeir ba'olam, but when in the world shines gilui ein sof shekoidem hatzimtzum. If when in the world shines the ein sof, which is the oir hakolu b'moir, the oir which is before the tzimtzum. So over there is a lekus hu b'pshitas. Then it's not a chiddush. Then godliness, that's the obvious. Then there is no world. Lekus hu b'pshitas. There is no room for anything which is not godly. From the perspective, when we have the Gilu Oyer from Lifnei HaTzimtzum, everything is godly. Bedugmas Shahoya Koidim HaTzimtzum, similar to the way it was before the Tzimtzum. In the Oyer, Shahoya Oyer and Sof Memale Esmokim HaChalom, when the Oyer and Sof filled the place of the empty, which was later on going to be the world, there was no room there for world to stand. There was no world. When you have the gilui of the oir of Lifnei HaTzimtzum, the oir HaKol B'moir, then there is no world. There's no place for the world. So now we understand. The Rebbe says, V'zehu. So this is the idea, Sha'abitl HaChoshech L'gamri. How do you get rid, negate, totally choshech, while yidegilu oir hakol b'moir? That is through the revelation of the oir as it's included in the moir, which is the oir sof shel lifnei hatzimtzum, which is the oir sof lifnei hatzimtzum. The oir lifnei hatzimtzum is only a likud does not allow for choshech at all if you want to get rid of the choshech. The oir that is after the tzimtzum, the oir shalachar tzimtzum, the oir that is after the tzimtzum, kivon shin yonihu la'oires oilamis. Since the idea of that oir is to illuminate worlds, so there is world there. It has to illuminate it. The mezem muvon sha'oilamis tefsimakan l'gabei. That means it is illuminating the world. So there is a world, and it has to. The world takes up space, meaning it is an entity. L'chein. So that's why when that shine comes, it is in a way Shehelem v'hester the olam b'yicholte l'halim olav. So that's why the Helem and Hester, they block the obscurity of the world, can block on it because world in the world of this Oir Acharat Simsum is an entity, so it can block it. Bahainu. So saying to block it, which means even when it shines, it's still b'hischachus, there's still a world, but there's a possibility to block it that it shouldn't shine at all. Bahainu. The noise of la elam the oilam sheyeshnam gam k'shemeira gilui. In addition, that the world is still obscuring, even when the gilui is made, like we said before, it's still elakus bischachus, which means there's still a metzius of world, and there is still a helam, there's still world over there. Shehagilui elakus ba'olam shadei gilui erzeh. The revelation of godliness in the world that comes through the oir shel acharat simtzum u'b'derech hischachus canal. That's in the way of renewal. There's still a world, and it's hischachus. So therefore, there's still a gilui. But not only that, it can actually block entirely the light, that you shouldn't even feel the gilui at all. Hine efsher shahalam do'ilam. It's possible that the helam would yalim gamal gilui should also obscure this revelation. There should be no revelation of the world at all. Not even a gilui which comes in a b'derech ischachus, which is a gilui. It's in a way, it's a nugu. It's not. There's still a helen, but at least there's gilui. It can block the gilui altogether. That is the oir acharat simtzum, the oir mugbal. Ubichdei sheyebit lachosech v'aydei gilui etzem ha'oir shalamaylam ha'oir. You need, in order to eradicate the choshech, that is by the revelation of the essence of the light, shalamaylam ha'oir shalahoiras oilamas, which is higher than the oir that comes down to shine the world. But the oir hakolul b'shemesh, the oir which is kolul ba'atzmusay, the oir habligvul, the oir is kolul b'moir. The oir is ein oir l'mayim. This oir, the world is not miling from it. It's not the ischachus of the real kusus b'pshitas. V'zehu mashikosu b'medrash. This is the meaning of the medrash that was brought down in the Maimer before. Shaga'ulo hasidei dugmas oir hayoyim. That the future redemption is similar to the daylight, not like a candle that can be blown out, but this is like the daylight, the shine of the day. It doesn't apply there to extinguish it. So the Rebbe said what we can say, what it means. What oil is the geula hasida, that it comes from the oil ma'am shaychus lo'olamis. Shein shayich helam l'gabei. There's no helam l'gabei, and that's why when that oil shines, then there is no choshech at all. It's not pushed away. There is no choshech because there's no metzius of choshech. It's totally not metzius of choshech. So far, the part that the Maimer spoke about, that in order to bring the eradicate, we need the level of the gilu ha'atzmos, the Rebbe explains, is through the gilu oir hakolul b'moir, because dafke legabe that gilu there is no choshech at all, and when that shines, then there is no darkness, not bischachus, but there is no oil. However, now we're going to explain the hemshech of the Maimer, what the Rebbe brings down over there. Because remember, in the hemshech of the Maimer, the Rebbe says that all levels have that connection. Even the oir that it be slapshus also has the connection. And the Rebbe explained before that it has the two ways of connecting to wanting to be included, and the connection in the lower level, the wanting to be not excluded. Why does the Rebbe bring that down? Because right now we're still stuck. Yes, the higher Gilui eradicates the darkness. But how does this relate to the world? In other words, world has not eradicated. That means you brought down a Gilui which is higher than world, which eradicated the darkness. It's higher, a bilti mugbal. But how did the world, that's the issue that the Rebbe Bavorans, and the Rebbe explains what the Rebbe Rashab Bavorans were trying to tell you, that even in the world, there is an impact from the Oir HaBligvul that it touches the world itself. Let's look inside. Test. Tzarich lahavin the lechayra. You have to understand. It would seem that kivon shemitzad ha'oir the lahoyra soilomis. Since from the perspective, from the light which shines in the world, impossible to negate the darkness. The world, the oir, which is inward, does not negate choshech. It can only push it away. Okay, so that means that the world, in essence, has the metzius of choshech over there. So here we're saying so how is in the future redemption, which say is going to be totally eradicated? It's going to be no choshech at all. Because it's going to be a new light revealed, which is higher than having a connection to the world. So then it turns out, but the world itself, the definition of the world, the world as it is on its own, which is dark, but the dark world gets oir. Also the geluyim, which is the oir, which is shaykh to the ilmas. From that perspective, they're going to be in golus because the light that is going to come is going to be from the oir kolul, which doesn't get into the into the world. That's what the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe explains now, coming to tell us, even in the world itself, the Kudus Habir was that. What is the explanation? The point of the explanation. The Mehataimim al Zeh Shabriya Hoysa Ba'oifim Shebetchila. Why was the world created in such a way that there was the Oir HaBlikvul? And the Eibishter made a tzimtzum. And then he gave the Oir HaGvul from the Oir HaBlikvul, from Lifnei Tzimtzum. Why didn't he Chatchila bring the level of the Tzimtzum Dike Oir instead of making the Blikvul and then bringing it into? The answer is because there needs to be a connection from the Oir Mugbal to the Oir HaBlikvul. The Mahataimim Alzeh, what is the reason Shabriya Hoysa Boifen? Why was the world created in a way? Shabbatchila Nimtza Ha'oir Shalamayla Meshachas Loyalness. In the beginning, there's a light which is higher than the world's. Umimenu Dafke Nimshacha Oir de Lahoires Oilomes. And from that Oir, Ablikvul, was a kav that was Nimshach from Lifnei Atzimtzum into the world to be light, to illuminate the worlds. It should be lechatchila should have been only giving the light that shaykhs la'olamis without having the bigger light and making it tzimtzum, and to be mamshich from lifnei tzimtzum. So that the oir, even though it's shaykh la'olamis, should have in a hidden way, should have somewhat of the oir which has a connection to the world. So Pizem move on. So since we're saying that the oir hashaychus lo'olamas is still connected behelim with the oir shelifnei hatzimtzum, moving dagam shebitl choshech hagolus hiya al yidei gilu etzem ha'oir shelemaylim ha'oir de la'oiras olamas. Even though that how will the darkness of the Golus be negated, eradicated, would be through the revelation of the essence of the light, which is higher than the light that illuminates of the world. So it almost seems that the world, because of itself, isn't going to be able to get the geula because it still has the obscurity. No, this geula will come down also in the gedorim, in the boundaries of the world. Because the revelation of the essence of the oir, which will come to Gula Hasida, yoir begilui, it'll also come down openly. Gam be'oir shaloiris olames. Also, the light which lights the world, which is connected to the world, it'll come down into that oir, vayideza ba'olim, also in the world. The Rebbe asked the question: how could the world get geula? The geula, in its definition, is not geula because it's the oir hashayches lahoilamis. The oir hashayches is connected to choshech. It doesn't eradicate choshech. And the Rebbe says no, because the Eibishter created in such a way that hidden, even in the oir habgavul that dresses up in the world, it's connected to the oir shelifnei hatzimtzum. That's why the Eibishter created in such a way. This is the detailed to explain the ideas of the Maimer lebitl choshech hagolus, to negating the darkness of the golus. The fact that the Maimer at length talks about the oil that is included of the moker, that's to give us the idea that there's no choshech over there. Yesh loymar, to say, because to eradicate the choshech of golus, we need that oil. Shumipnei shabitl choshech hagolus hu aidei gilu oil hakolul. That how does the choshech hagolus negate it is through the revelation of oil hakolul, which doesn't allow, as the Rebbe explained, it doesn't allow for a metzias of oilam, and that's why there's no choshech anymore. There's no darkness, not pushed away, but no darkness. The zeshem evayir. And then he goes on to explain that the nature of running and inclusion is also in the oir. Shebegeder his slapshus, that even in the oir comes in slapshus, it also and also in the oir that is dressed in the kelim, who al yidei she'inyan his kalus ha'oir b'mekoiroi, that the idea that the oir is included in the moker, ugam ba'oiram lubish b'kelim, it's also in the light which is in the oir that dress up in the kelim, and therefore in the oir, in the oilam, there will be also the gather of geula in felt in the oilam, because it also has the oir hakol b'mekoirei in it b'pnimiyus. And now the Rebbe explains Yud, his Yud, v'zeu kates som lachosech, meaning that he put, as the Rebbe teaches it, that he put a limit. He put a limit in the beginning, meaning he put a limit in the oir hablikvul, the oir hakolu b'hamoir. He also put a limit so that in order for the oir hablikvul to be able to impact the gevul, so that when the geula hasida is impacted, so there is also a geula for the oir hamalubish in the world, in the oilam, and that is through the kates, through the limit that is in the beginning, in the level of the oir habligvul itself, that it is impacting the gevul in a way so that the geula is going to be a geula also for the world. Let's look inside. Yud. V'zeu kates som lachoshech. He put a kates. In this case, he put a boundary for the choshech. The yeshloimar shepirush tevis kates bepasuk zehu. What does it mean in this pasuk? Not just an end to darkness, but he put a limit. Gam kates ugvul l'reishisoi. Also a limit and an end in the beginning to the beginning of the oir. In the oir habligvul, there is a limit that the Eibishter put. In of itself, there is no choshech of there at all. But the Eibishter put a limit in the oir habligvul so that the gevul should be impacted by the geula. Let's see, Hainu. She'inyan hachoshech yesh loy nesinas mokim. Because if not the Eibishter made this limit in the Reshisoi, Choshech has only place only in the light which shines in the world. But in the Reshisoi, in the beginning of, in the essence of Oir, there is no Choshech. It doesn't even fit to say Choshech. As the Rebbe asked before, why do we say that the Eibishter has to put a limit? Because he has to put a limit, because the answer is in the Etzem Ha'oir, there's no Choshech there. So there's no Shaykhs to say that there's a limit when there's no Choshech at all. V'nemer Kate Som LaChoshech. And here we're saying that he put a limit. The Eibishter made the Choshech a limit. The fact that there is a kates for the choshech, without it, there's no choshech at all. The Eibishter made a kates out there. In the Rishis Avu Mitzadatzmein the kates, but in the Oir Be'etzem Oir there is no kates. There is no choshech. Ein le kates. That choshech has no room. That wouldn't be fit to the olam, and the olam wouldn't have geula. How would it have geula, the world, if it's because the oir is totally higher? There's no kates over there. The kimmishim mitzad hageder the olam ein lo kates beroshei, and if because of the world, together of the world, there would be no kates, so then the world wouldn't get geula. Since the darkness is connection to all places that belong to the world, so then in the end, when the golus will be over, the choshech will be in this battle. That would not, God forbid, the world wouldn't go out, because from the perspective of the world, there is choshech. The only reason why there is no choshech is because there's the gilui ha'etzem, but not the connection to the world. And therefore, kates bereishay. That's what the Eibishter put the kates bereishay in the beginning. That also the life is navigated in Elamis, and there is no choshech of their be'etzem. Shashom ein nesinas makom l'choshech, that there's no room for choshech in the Reishisoi, in there yeshayich le'ha'olam. That it should be Eibishter made it connected to the world, so that later on, like we said before, that the oir shel lifnei hatzimtzum shines in the oir shel achrei hatzimtzum. Through this, because also the oir hakolu b'atzmusei has a kates that the Eibishter made it in a kates. That allows for the kates b'soifei bittul hachoshech sheyiyah begeula hasida. The darkness that will be negated through the future redemption, that it should be in the world in a previous. Which means that is the case that the Eibishter connected, that even the Eir HaBlikvul should be connected to the Eir HaGvul, to the world, so that there should be a Geula within the world. The Hagam Shebit Lachosech Sheyeh L'Osid Lovei. Even though that the negation of darkness that'll be in the future, Hu Al Yidei Sheyeh Oz Gilu Eir Chodesh Shalomayim B'Shaychus L'Olas. That will be, how will it be the Choshech negated? By the revelation of the new light, which is higher than the world's. But still, the world will be a keli also for that light. The Eibishter made this Kate some even to that, to make it that it should be connected, so that the world itself, the Olam, will have Geula. That way, the intent of having a dinim b'tachtonim will be fulfilled, because the world will have Geula. That the lower level, because from its perspective, its boundaries, will be a dira for Hashem. How is it? That is through the Kate, some Lahosech. So the Rebbe explained the details in the Maimer. First, the Rebbe explains how the Eira Kolubatz Musay doesn't allow for Choshech. That brings the Gula Hasidah. But that leaves us with a problem. So that means that the Gula Hasidah will be from a new light, a new Chodesh, but the world is going to remain in Golus because it is itself is Choshech. We want that, the Rebbe explains, we want that the world should sense the Geula. So that's why Kate Sam Lachoshech, the Eibishter made that limit in the Eir HaBlikvul, so that when there's a shine of the Eir HaBlikvul in the world, the Gvul will also B'Pnimius get that level of the Eir HaBlikvul, and B'Meila, the world from itself would also mitzad its gedorim, mitzad it tachten, become a direloi la'atzmoseh. Now, of course, this is a very deep Haskolodike Maimer. Try to explain it the best we can, but we got to go over many times. I think we got the gist of it, but needs to go over again and again to really try to understand to the extent possible.